Rosey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm a big fan of your show.
Oh, well, thank you. And we are sharing Rosie's story at 44. But before we get started, Rosie, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a nurse in the Midwest, and I live with my husband, my son, and my daughter.
How old are they, just to give reference?
Yeah, my daughter is 7, and my son is 10 months.
Tell us, did you always want kids? How did this begin?
No, actually, I was fairly confident I did not want children or I would adopt. I don't know. In my 20s, it was just not on my radar, and I just wasn't sure. Then I met my now husband, and after we dated for a few years, it was something that I was interested in. We got married when I turned 33, and I felt fairly sure that I wanted children at that time. That's when we started not preventing. I had an IUD in and I got that removed a few months after we got married. And at the time we were moving and looking to sell the current house we were living in. I just remember thinking I'm not even going to worry about getting pregnant. It's just going to happen when the time is right. I'm 33, no big deal. I'll get pregnant whenever and that'll be fine. So many people stress out about it, and that's just not going to be me,
We
which is
always
so
think it's not going
funny.
to be us.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, we were busy with other things in life, and a year went by, and I think what kind of triggered me thinking about it was one of my coworkers announced her pregnancy, and I remember thinking "Oh, I'm not pregnant yet. That's interesting." And I was like, maybe I should try and figure out, are we doing everything correctly or should I be doing something better here? So I got on Dr. Google and read a little bit of information, and I was like, oh, we have not been timing this appropriately at all. I didn't know there's only this brief window of time every month, and we haven't even been trying to do that. So I think we just need to time things better. So started trying to time things a little better, and still nothing happened. And at that point, I'm like 34, 34 and a half, something like that. And I reached out to my aunt, who is an IVF nurse, and I told her what had been going on. And I was like, do you have any tips for us? I don't know what to do. And she was like, yeah, why don't you try having sex every other day after your period ends up until day 20 for a few months? And just have your OB run some basic tests and just work on that for a while and then circle back if nothing happens. And I was like, okay. So saw the OB, everything was fine. And then we did what my aunt said, and still nothing was happening. At that point, I go back to my aunt, and she recommended me with an OB that she worked with. He was an OB but did fertility on the side. I met with him, and he did a little bit more investigation, and we did some timed intercourse, Clomid. He thought we had unexplained infertility. Semen analysis was good enough, but still nothing was happening. And there was this issue with that OB. One of my labs, my prolactin was elevated, and he was suggesting that I needed a brain MRI to check for a benign pituitary tumor.
Oh my gosh.
And which I was willing to get, but it was like $1,000 or something, even with insurance. So I was like, can we just double check it? Because I don't want to go spend this money if it's comes back normal the second time. If it's still elevated, I will go do this. And I had been doing some reading that said prolactin should be drawn first thing in the morning. Don't eat or drink. Don't work out. And I had done all of those things the other time I had it drawn, and it was the middle of the day. So I went ahead and got it redrawn, and it was normal. And I just, at that point, wanted to move on from that doctor. And my aunt sent me to an RE that she worked with. He was in private practice. He didn't do IVF. He just did everything leading up to that. He did like cycle monitoring, time intercourse, IUI. So we did all of that with him. Nothing was really happening. He didn't really find anything other than thick cervical mucus, but everything else was like checking out okay.
But isn't
He put me on estrogen patches to help with that, to help thin your mucus. But anyway, we did an IUI with him with Follistim with injectables. That didn't work. And then we did a second IUI, and he told me, this is your final IUI before I would recommend moving on to IVF. At this point, I don't think I've mentioned, at this point, I am now like 35, 36.
Mhm.
Anyway, we do the second IUI with him. I had an HSG before that IUI just to make sure my tubes were good. And yeah, I was feeling very hopeful at the beginning of that cycle. And then I started testing too early. I was getting negatives, and I was like, this didn't work. This
Mm.
totally didn't work. And I was telling my aunt, this didn't work. Like, we're moving on to IVF. I'm checked out of this. And so I even filled out all the IVF paperwork. I got like finances in order, and my beta was coming up. I ended up getting like a stomach bug right before my beta.
Oh, no.
And I even tested the morning I felt sick. It was like 14 days after the IUI, and it was negative. So I was like, yep, not pregnant. But I was in bed for 2 days. And then I woke up the morning of my beta, and I was like, I am going to just test one more time. So I'm like mentally prepared that it's going to be negative and we're moving on to IVF. And I woke up that morning and I was like, I'm really dehydrated from the stomach bug, so it should be pretty accurate. And it was positive.
Oh,
I had never had a positive pregnancy test before in my life. I was 36 then, and that was my daughter.
wow.
So yeah,
That's wild. So 14 days after the IUI.
it was still negative, and he did his beta 16 days after the IUI, and that's when I got my positive. Yeah,
That's incredible. I would never
yeah.
think it would take that long to test positive.
Me neither. And I reminded myself of that as I was going through it a second time. But yeah, maybe it was like later implantation or something. I don't know. I did a lot of different things that cycle, like Reiki and just random things. And I wrote everything down because I was like, okay, I found the like secret recipe for myself in case I need this later. I had a good pregnancy, and that was my daughter, who is now 7, almost 8.
Wow. So did you have a vaginal birth induction?
So I opted to go to a birthing center with
Mm.
her. So I saw midwives for my pregnancy, and I did have a vaginal birth. I was almost 42 weeks
Whoa.
pregnant. I was on the verge of getting induced because they were like, we're not letting you go past 42. And then, like, right before I was about to get induced, I was like, I'm going for a walk, and because my friend had said, just go for a really long walk and walk up a whole bunch of hills. And I was like, okay. So I go for this really long walk and walk up like 9 hills. And I swear on the way home from that walk, I started having contractions. Yeah, it was just funny. But anyway, so I went into labor naturally then. Unfortunately, like she ended up having meconium. Like, my water broke at home. It was meconium, thick meconium. And when I went into labor and delivery, like, I had been contracting at home for, I don't know, 12 hours. I went in and I was like just 1 centimeter. And that's what I was the day before when they had seen me. And I was like so bummed out because I thought I
Yeah.
was getting through them. And with the meconium and the lack of progress, they moved me up to labor and delivery, like out of the birthing center. Like, this birthing center was affiliated with a hospital.
Hmm.
I tried to hang in there, but I had a doula and everything, but I just got to the point where I was like, I'm not dilating. I've been having these contractions for 16 hours. Like, I feel like I need to get an epidural. Like, I just am so uncomfortable at this point. And that ended up being the best decision because I just was able to relax and things started happening. We ended up doing all the things as opposed to a more natural, unmedicated birth. Like, I had an amnio infusion, Pitocin, epidural, like all the things. And everything was good. With the meconium, she had a lot of difficulty breathing after she was born, and she needed some resuscitation, and she got taken to NICU right away. And she had to stay in the hospital for a few days after we were discharged.
Oh,
But other than that, I mean, it was a good birth, and I was glad I got to have her vaginally for sure.
yeah. Yeah. Going to those 42 weeks, did you have a lot of anxiety?
I don't remember feeling anxious. I used to be a labor and delivery nurse, so I just was like, I really tried to just keep an open mind. I was like, I have a birth plan, but I know that this doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anxiety at all, but I just remember it's time. There's no way we can keep her in any longer. Like, I wasn't uncomfortable or anything either.
Mhm. Okay. Now that you have your daughter, what did you always want a second?
When I envisioned us having children, I was thinking we would have two. I was like, yeah, maybe when she's between 1 and 2, we'll go ahead and try for another one. And after I had her, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. I cannot imagine another child in this mix. I wasn't really certain that I wanted to have another one right away. When she was getting closer to 2, I thought I can see how this possibly could be manageable. I delivered her a week after I turned 37. And so when she's 2, now I am 39. And I was really aware of my age and like thinking, okay, I'm not sure, but I think I need to figure this out sooner rather than later. Like I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to figure it out because of my age. But when I was 39, like that was fall of 2019, so COVID
Mm.
was around the corner. And I feel like just the option to get treatment right away wasn't available. Plus, it was just those times were uncertain and it felt kind of weird, like trying for a baby aggressively to us at the beginning of all that.
Sure.
However, we tried at home and just in a very relaxed way, but again, like nothing was happening. So I think I gave that maybe 6 months to a year. And then as I was inching closer to 40, I was like, okay, I have got to get serious about this. Like, it's now I'm 40 and I need to make this choice. So I was like, okay, we're going to start timing things better. I worked with a functional medicine doctor and I was like dialing in my diet and supplements. And I was like, I'm going to give this a little time. If it doesn't work, I'm going to see an RE. Though the RE that I really liked that had done the IUIs, he had since retired, so going back to him was not an option anymore. He had referred me to a different clinic, so that's after the functional medicine doctor thing didn't work out or nothing, no pregnancies occurred, we moved on to that clinic. I met with the doctor there and she was like, everything looks good. It's just your age. We're battling your age. And I was like, okay. And I
I
was
hate when
very
they
like,
say that.
I know. Because right now I'm like, man, 40 seems so young. Like,
I know.
I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah. Sorry, I
so
interrupt.
no, you're fine. But I remember telling her, I do not want to do IVF. Like, I has worked before. Let's just do IUI. So I had like my whole workup with them. And to get started with things there, I felt like it took forever. Like, it took months. And we did 2 IUIs there and they did not work. And I actually hated it there. Like their whole
Mm.
process, it was just a really big clinic, a whole bunch of doctors. It has ties with Catholicism, I believe,
Okay.
but they just do like cycle monitoring, timed intercourse, no IVF, no IUI. But this doctor came, highly recommended. Oh, and they do surgery like for endometriosis and stuff,
Mhm.
or corrective things that can be corrected via surgery. But anyway, I met with him and yeah, he talked about the age thing again. We did another HSG, which was fine. Just did one cycle with timed intercourse and follistim, and that did not work. And I remember he had me meet with one of his nurses and she like went over all this like how to monitor your cervical mucus. And I just remember in that meeting with her, like thinking, I am beyond this. This is 10 years ago stuff. Like, I can't waste my time with this cervical mucus stuff. I don't know. I was just like, I'm done. So at that point, my aunt was an IVF nurse, and I reached out to her and I was like, okay, I didn't want to do IVF, but I'm really sure I want another baby. So I guess I'm ready to do IVF. Her doctor did only mini-IVF, and he specialized in here, but like older women. So I really liked the fact that he did minimal stimulation, and like the thought behind that was just getting like higher quality embryos, smaller amounts, and we only wanted one more child. So again, I felt like this aligned with my values. So she got me in with her doctor. This is probably when I'm like 41, I think.
Hmm.
And we planned for our first retrieval. And we did that. I think since it's a mini stem, I think we had 5 or 6 eggs or something, and we only ended up with one embryo
Uh,
that cycle.
uh-huh.
I was pretty bummed. I remember feeling really
Sure.
upset about that. And at the time, my AMH was like almost 3, like it was pretty high. So that really wasn't an issue for me. We planned another retrieval because I wanted to have more than one. So a few months later, we did another retrieval, and I don't know, maybe 7 eggs or something, but we ended up getting 3 embryos. So we had 4 embryos between those two retrievals, and I felt like pretty confident with that.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah, and they only do frozen transfers, so like they just freeze all. Like they think it's better to just let your body rest and your lining recover because they use Clomid a lot with their
Mm.
stimulation. After we had those 4, we planned on transfers. So we transferred 2, and this was like probably when I'm almost 42. I couldn't wait for the blood test. And I remember going to like the pharmacy or something and taking a urine test like in the bathroom at the pharmacy. And I saw like a faint line and I was like, yes, I'm pregnant. That's all we needed. IVF does work. Like this, no problem. Like I was just like, this is no big deal. Like I had no, like my only perspective was I got a positive pregnancy test at home with my daughter, and that's all we needed, and that was that. So I just was thinking the exact same thing would happen.
Yeah, you've never
So,
experienced anything else.
no, no. Yeah. So I think my blood test was the next day, and then my aunt texted me like my beta, gosh, I want to say it was like low 20s or something like that.
Oh.
And I was like, what? This can happen? Like, this isn't high enough? And she's, we'll recheck it again. I see these pop up all the time, but I don't know. I just felt, no, it's not going to come around. I just had that feeling.
Mhm.
But this beta would not, it would just like stayed exactly the same for a week. We just ended up calling it like it's not
Yeah.
rising, nothing's happening. So I had a chemical pregnancy, which I didn't even know what that was. I'm still feeling pretty hopeful. We had 2 embryos left, and I was like, okay, I got pregnant. That's a good sign. Like, we still have 2 embryos. Let's keep going forward. So we planned another transfer. And this is now I'm like 42. And we transferred those, and I got pregnant again. And this time the beta looked fantastic. Everything looked great. And I don't think I mentioned this, but I briefly met with a doctor in New York. His name is Sammy David. He looks at your whole case and he just makes sure nothing was missed. So I met with him, and the only thing he found was like I had high natural killer cells, which I know is like controversial in the world. Like some people, the world of infertility, some people believe in it, and some doctors don't.
Mhm.
But I was like, the treatment for it was intralipid infusions at the time of transfer. I'm like, it seems like benign enough. Let's just go ahead and do it. So I was having those infusions with my transfers. So he was also monitoring my betas like extra carefully, like even outside of the fertility clinic, and everything was just looking really good. However, I don't know, I just was very uneasy. I just felt like something didn't feel right. And I think right before my ultrasound, like the 8-week ultrasound, I just started to feel like something had shifted. I don't know. So I
Sometimes
go
you
in.
just know, though.
Yeah, yeah, I know. So I go in for my 8-week ultrasound, and the OB was like, I don't have good news. Like, I could just see from his face. He was just like, the baby doesn't have a heartbeat and you've had a miscarriage. And I was just like, again, my reference point was with my daughter. And even though I felt like something wasn't right, this just also wasn't on my radar. And I was like, obviously devastated. That was
Yeah.
one of the lows, I would say, in
Mhm.
my fertility journey, because you go into these appointments thinking you're going to leave with like baby pictures and all the things, and then you're deciding within 10 minutes, like, how are we going to have this miscarriage? I'm sure a lot of women can relate to that.
Yeah.
But it was right before Christmas, and I just chose to have a DNC because I just didn't think I could do it at home.
Mhm.
So I had the DNC right before Christmas 2022. And that was, like I said, a very hard time. I started working with a perinatal neuropsychologist, like on Voxer is how she does her service. I got to talk to her Monday through Friday every day. And I just feel like working with her, like I was very proactive in getting myself support because this is hard
Yeah.
stuff. So working with her, I felt like I had the courage and desire to move forward and do another retrieval. And I just started to feel like this was possible, that I could move forward. We did a third retrieval. This is like March 2023, 42. And that was like our best retrieval. Like we ended up getting 4 embryos from that cycle.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was. We were really excited. But again, my reference point had changed. Like we had 4 embryos before and we didn't end up
Mm.
with a baby. So I was like, that's not enough. I was like, let's do another retrieval because something is really going right in my body. We just got 4. Let's go for this now while everything seems to be like going well. We did another retrieval a few months later, and it was like right around the time my daughter was graduating from preschool. I remember being really nervous that the retrieval was going to be on the same day as the graduation. Thankfully, it wasn't, but I was at her graduation and my aunt was calling me. And usually she just texted me a fertilization report. This time she's calling me, and I'm like, oh, this is unusual. And so she calls me, and they had gotten maybe 5 or 6 eggs. I don't really even remember, but she was like, so unfortunately, this time, like, none of your eggs look good enough to even fertilize.
Ah.
So we didn't end up with any embryos this time. The embryologist thought it just all looked not good. And when that stuff happens, again, I'm sure listeners can relate, but it like reinforces the ideas that all of my eggs are bad, that kind of thing. Here's
Mhm.
proof. I was obviously devastated. I would say that was another low point in the journey. But I just remember coming home that day after the graduation, like crying, and I just was like, I'm done with my eggs. Like, I am not having another retrieval. I just knew I was done. I just was like, I can't write another check for this. What if this happens next time too? I don't know. I just felt like completely done. I was like, we still have 4 frozen embryos, so maybe that made it a little easier. But I'm like, let's just transfer these and we'll see what happens. So gave it a few months of rest time, and then we transferred 2 of the embryos, which that did not work. And then shortly thereafter, we transferred the other 2, and those did not work either.
Mm. You didn't even get
So
a positive, just didn't
no,
work.
it just didn't work.
Ugh, heartbreak.
Yeah, I know. And we had done a few things, like I did like an endometrial scratch and tried antibiotics, like just to treat anything. I tried steroids, like they changed a few things up, hysteroscopy, which was normal. Like we did different things, but unfortunately, just like nothing
Yeah.
worked. Just my personality was thinking, what if these 4 embryos don't work? Before we got to that point, I was like, what are my options here? And we were thinking adoption, foster care, donor embryo, donor egg, like exploring all those options. And I really felt like donor egg was what I wanted to do for me. And speaking with my husband, he felt similarly. Like I didn't feel like a genetic component was that important to me. And maybe it's easier because I have my daughter. I don't know. I just really wanted to be pregnant again. I really enjoyed being pregnant. I wanted to have that whole experience. And I just felt like that was the way for me to have that. So, in the back of my mind, that was my plan if those embryos didn't work. So, around that time, my aunt's clinic was relocating, and she had told me if you want to get started with donor eggs right away, you can totally switch clinics because we're going to be shutting down for a few months. And I did want to get started right away. And I just felt maybe, even though I loved it there, like maybe a change of scenery would be good and just like
Mhm.
fresh perspective or whatever.
Yeah. But what a cool experience to have your aunt be the communication. I think that's really neat.
It was amazing. Like my stress level, I have nothing bad to say. My stress level there was just so low. Like it was amazing. Like black and white difference, day and night difference compared to that clinic that I was working with before them. But also maybe that was divine timing, just new perspective because I did like to change things up. When you're on this journey a long time, I just can't keep doing the exact same thing over
Mhm.
and I just felt like just maybe seeing a different acupuncturist or trying different supplement or just anything to tweak it a little bit.
Mhm.
I felt like just was better for my mental health. So we decided to switch to, it was like a big university clinic in town. And I want the best RE, I want the head RE, and I'm not messing around anymore. I don't know. I just had thoughts in my mind of how I wanted things to go. And that's the only thing I will say. And this is on me, not on my aunt, but I probably like when I was working with her, I didn't want to be a problem child because
Mhm.
it was a relative. And even though we're really close, like I just wanted to be go with the flow. And like moving forward, I was like, I don't have to be like that anymore. And not that I had to be before. Again,
Sure.
that's on me. But I was like, I am going to be very take charge of my journey, like going forward. So I met with the head RE there and I said, I'm ready to do donor eggs. And he thought that was a great plan. When I had met with that NAPRO doctor going back a little ways, he had offered to do a lap to check for endo.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, why would I do that? I don't have any symptoms. Wouldn't that have come up in some other way? And he's actually, no, unless you have surgery, we cannot tell you 100% whether you have endo or not. And he's like, I just wanted to offer it to you because 50% of women with infertility have endo. And sometimes the only symptom is infertility. But at
Wow.
the time, I was like, no, I don't want to have surgery. Like,
Mhm.
I don't have endo. I just put it in the back of my mind. However, I had trouble when I was 33 getting pregnant. And I know as I got older, everyone was like, it's your age, it's your age, it's your age. But I kept having to point out, like, actually, I'm sure my age is not helping me here, but there's something else that was pre existing before I was in my 40s. So I reconsidered the endometriosis thing. I had been hearing a lot about the Receptiva test, which is like a non-invasive way to check for endo. It's just like they do a endometrial biopsy in the office. And it's not 100%, but I feel like it's 90, 95, 98. Like it's high as far as determining whether you may have endo or not. So I had asked about it previously, and my aunt's doctor that she worked with, like, just wasn't a believer in it. And so I just let it go. But that's why I was like, this time I want to go ahead and get that done. Because I just wanted to know what has been my issue like all these years.
Sure.
Um, because we haven't prevented pregnancy in 10 years, and the only time I've gotten pregnant is with assisted reproductive technology. So even this head RE at this university, who's very like up to date with everything, he was like, I don't really think you need to do that test. He's like, why don't we just do a transfer? And if it doesn't work, then we can do the receptiva. And I was like, no. I was like, I've already had 4 failed transfers. Why would I do that to myself? No, like,
Good for
let's do it.
you.
And he was like, $600. I'm like, I don't care. I was like, that's like nothing in this world, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, I was like, I don't care. That's fine. Let's do it. And he's okay, all right. And he came around to the idea and set me up for it. And so his nurse practitioner did it. And then I got a message from his nurse. This doctor wants to meet with you to discuss your results. And I was like, so was it positive? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad like I advocated for myself.
Yeah, that is really
Um,
good. And after
yeah.
4 failed transfers, ugh, it's like, yeah, let's do something.
It's like donor eggs, you don't have an unlimited supply. They're expensive. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to risk wasting any.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was positive. So, he said, would you like to have a laparoscopic surgery to remove any endometriosis that we find? Or the other option is going on 2 months of Lupron, which puts you into menopause pretty quickly, but it settles, like it lowers your estrogen, so it settles all the endometriosis down. And it was just an easy choice for me because I didn't want to have surgery because I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I had any endo symptoms. And I was just like, let's do the Lupron. I just feel like that's what feels right. I
Yeah.
did the Lupron for 2 months. It wasn't too bad. I would totally do it again.
Yeah. I think this is when we started talking because I remember you getting
Yeah.
on Lupron back then.
Yeah. I think what kept me going throughout my whole journey was just listening to success stories. And I think I found your podcast on iTunes podcast or whatever, Apple Podcasts. And I just I have to listen to success stories
Yeah.
because I remember your transfer was October 25th and that's my
Yep.
birthday. I know, so I was like, "Oh, this is like a sign I need to keep listening to this." But yeah, I remember listening, yeah, and talking to you. So yeah, went on Loop Run and we had 6 frozen eggs.
Mhm.
And I was able to pick out a donor pretty easily. Like, I just asked the clinic, what egg banks do you guys recommend? Because otherwise I felt like it was overwhelming, just like all the
Yes.
choices. So they gave me like 3, and then that kind of narrowed things down. But the donor we picked, she had 2 children, and I felt like that was really important to me that she
Mhm.
was like a proven donor because I'm like, she has children. I've carried a baby and had a baby before. My husband, proven fertility. So I feel like I'm trying to push the odds in our favor.
Yeah. I think you put that in my head that a proven donor is a good idea. 'Cause I didn't even think about that when I was choosing my donor. I was like, "Oh, that does make a lot of sense."
Yeah, I just felt right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think my aunt maybe had mentioned that to me too. She was
Mhm.
like, sometimes the really young, never had kids or have never donated before, that makes me nervous. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to do that then.
Mhm.
But our donor, I just felt like I loved her appearance. I just wanted someone with like brown hair and big brown eyes. So I felt like she looked similar to me. She wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse. I used to be a labor and delivery nurse. Just all her answers felt really in line with like our beliefs and things I would say. And yeah, so we picked her out pretty quickly. There was another one we were interested in, but something wasn't working right with the genetic testing, like both that donor and my husband had to get done. It wasn't lined up. super good. Like we were going to have to track that donor down to get more testing. So we just were like, okay, that's a sign. Let's just move on with this one. So we
Mhm.
had a lot of 6 eggs. And after my 2 months of Lupron, so this is when I'm 43, we defrosted the eggs, fertilized them, and I got a call from the clinic. And this is, I remember talking to you about this for sure, because I remember I was losing my mind. And you were like saying all this really positive stuff, and it was so helpful. But I remember I knew you had went through it too, so I was messaging you on Instagram. But they called, so we had 6 frozen, and they called and they're like, oh, only 4 made it from
I was
the
like, "Girl,
defrost.
4 is amazing."
But I was like, oh no. I was like, I don't know. I was just like doom spiraling, just thinking like, how are we losing eggs again? Or I don't know. After you've been through all of
Sure.
this hell, your mind sometimes goes like right to the gutter, just goes right to the negative.
Mhm.
Anyway, so they fertilized those 4, and the nurse called me, I don't know, within a day or two. And I could tell she was really excited when she called me. Like she just sounded like she had joy in her voice. And she's
Mhm.
like, all 4 fertilized. And I was like, yay, thank God. So it really didn't matter that we only had 4, but we ended up with 3. Like on day 5 or whatever, we had a blast, which they transferred. And then on day 6, we had 2 more blasts that they froze. And then there was one they said just petered out. So we ended up transferring that blast. And I did not have a very calm, like 5 days, like waiting to get I don't know if it was my blood drawn or if I was just planning to like pee on a stick 5 days later. But my daughter was like sick, very sick, and I was stressing out because I was on steroids, and I was just like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get a fever or sick? Or I was wearing a mask. Like I was taking her to urgent care. Like I was not zened out whatsoever. And I'm mentioning that because then I was stressing out that I was stressing.
Sure.
Um, this was like right around Easter, and I remember I took a pregnancy test on Easter and I saw a faint line. So this is 5 days after my 5-day transfer. And I was like, oh my God, oh my gosh, it's positive. I was so excited. And I didn't even tell my husband for 24 hours. And it was seriously like, yeah, like I got a positive pregnancy test, but and we were both like, yeah, okay. We've just been through it. It's just hard to get really excited because you just have been there before and it didn't
Mhm.
work out. So you are a little guarded. But yeah, they drew my beta shortly thereafter. It was really good. It was really high. Everything looked good. I was very anxious to get to that 8-week ultrasound just because that's when we had a miscarriage before. But it was just like one foot in front of the other, like walking into it. As soon as the tech put the probe in, there's the heartbeat, and I was like, thank God.
That's you're
Um,
holding your breath until you hear
yes,
those words.
yes. And I just feel like that's all I needed. I just needed to make it to that point because I felt like pretty calm and not too much anxiety the rest of
Mhm.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah, how was the rest of your pregnancy?
Good. I did have nausea, but it wasn't too bad. Like I never threw up or anything, just nausea. And I took ginger and I did those like C bands, they like those acupressure bands that you wear
Mm.
around your wrists, or those 24/7. And it stopped after the first trimester. I had some headaches in the first trimester too, but I took magnesium for those, occasionally Tylenol, but those didn't last too long either. I enjoyed being pregnant and I was like looking forward to it. I had a good pregnancy, like even despite some minor complaints, like as things went on, I had heartburn and I took like Tums or Prilosec or Pepsid, and that kind of managed that. And even at the end, I had RLS, but I don't know. It just none of it really bothered me. I just was just so grateful to like finally. be at this point, because it was a really long journey, like 10 years, like from when I started at 33 and now I'm 40, 43 to get to 2 kids.
Yeah.
So,
So,
yeah.
what were your fears going into this, or did you have any with donor eggs?
Yes, I was nervous I wasn't going to bond with the baby. I was nervous just how it was all going to play out. I think that was my biggest fear. I tried to listen to a lot of podcasts slash talk to other women who had went through this just to reassure myself. I think I talked to you. I know one friend of mine adopted, and I feel like I'm so bonded to my child. So it just helped talking to other women. And I will say now that I have went through that, I feel like it's not, the bonding thing has been a non-issue. Like I
Yeah.
just feel like we're so bonded
Yeah.
for sure.
I think I did a reel specifically like in response to all your fears. I was like, bonding is not going to be an issue.
No, no,
Yeah.
not at all. Yeah, it was amazing. Oh, and oh no, I did mention that. Like my daughter had to be taken away right away after birth. I feel like the fact that I got to hold him right away and he got to
Hmm.
breastfeed right away just made a world of difference. And I also had a lot of breastfeeding challenges with my daughter that we didn't have this time. So it just was all so different in a really good way.
Yeah. Going back to your pregnancy, did you do PGT testing to know the sex?
Yes, we did. There was a little controversy because of it being a donor egg, but I worked with my OB. We figured out like there was like one or two companies that you could have it done with where donor egg wasn't an issue. Like I talked to the rep from that company on the phone. She's like, yes, we can separate out all the DNAs, and not all the companies do that. But I was nervous about it because I didn't want anything to be like false or inconclusive because of the donor egg thing. But once we figured it out, had it done, and it was all good. And yeah, we found out it was a boy right away at that time. Yeah.
That's fun. And you were thinking about going to a midwife or OB. How did you decide between those two?
I was interested in going to the midwife group again, but they really wanted you to try and do labor medication free. And just based on my experience previously, I don't know. I just didn't think I could commit to that. Like they were
Mhm.
fine with IVF and my age and donor eggs, but they just were like, you have to go into it not wanting an epidural. And I was like, I feel like I might want an epidural. So I just ended up with my OB, who was fine. The only complaint I would say is I swear, like every appointment, she was like, since you're over 40, dot, 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 we're going to do this test. I feel like she just reminded me of my age constantly, but all of the tests, everything came back fine. Like I didn't have any issues other than what I mentioned, like no gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, et cetera, et cetera. I had a low lying placenta, which resolved. The baby he was measuring bigger, like 80th, 90th percentile the whole time. And she was like, we might want to do an elective C section if he continues to trend like this large. That's something I really didn't want. However, he was breech up until kind of the end. So I really had to get to the point I was like, okay, I had this placenta thing. He's allegedly like bigger, and now he's breech. Like maybe the universe is just trying to say I need to have a C-section here. I don't know. I just was like, fine, whatever. If I have to have a C-section, I'm just letting it go. And I swear, like the next time she checked, he had turned.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I did a lot of homeopathy during my pregnancy for like different complaints. I had taken, I think it's pulsatilla was like the remedy that the homeopath gave me to try. I did that and I tried spinning babies, but I don't know. I wasn't very good about it. It really aggravated my heartburn, so I
Oh,
wasn't really good about it.
you're like upside down, so it is going to
Yes.
make it worse.
Yeah. But he turned, so all was good. And my OB that was the other thing. She was like, the midwives, they're going to let you go to 42 weeks. And just again, the experience I had with my daughter, I was like, I don't want to do that again. It's not that I was uncomfortable. I feel like in my mind, I just equated being 42 weeks with her needing to go to the NICU or something. And I know that does not always happen, but I
Mhm.
just really wanted to do something different this time. My OB wanted to induce me like between 39 and 40 weeks, and I was okay with that. Just having a second child, it just makes like the logistics of everything a little easier. Like I could plan to get her to someone who could watch her, and then we go in and get induced. It just took the stress down for me. I got induced like 39 and a half weeks, and it was a really good experience for sure.
Walk us through that experience in
Okay.
getting to the hospital.
Yeah, so we like went in on a Sunday night and they did cytotech overnight and I just cramped, like mild contractions, cramping all night. I couldn't sleep. It was too uncomfortable. I felt like I slept for 10 minutes, but in the
Ugh.
morning came in and they let me eat a little bit and started Pitocin and the doctor came in at 9 o'clock, broke my water, and I feel like things happened pretty quickly. Like I got an epidural. I feel like probably could have held out for the epidural, but I was just, it's so hard to know when to call it. Am I in
Mhm.
enough pain? And I didn't want to be like super duper uncomfortable not being able to hold still. So got an epidural at some point in the morning there. And then we had him like around 4 o'clock that afternoon. I feel like it went pretty fast.
Yeah, how
So
long
yeah,
did you push for?
I want to say 30 minutes to an hour. I'm not 100% sure. Like, it didn't feel that long. He was bigger though. Like, my daughter was 6'12 and he was 8 pounds 1 ounce. But obviously, so glad I did not have a C section because he was not this ginormous baby that they thought he was going to be. So, bigger, but not huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you want any delayed cord clamping, skin to skin, all that?
Delayed cord clamping, I didn't really think about it too much. She offered it to me, and I think I just was like, whatever. I was just like glad that I had the baby. She like asked
Yeah.
me right after I had him, and I was like, whatever. But yeah, I wanted skin to skin for sure because we didn't get to do that with my daughter, and
Mhm.
that was amazing. I did have a postpartum hemorrhage, but my doctor was very aggressive and she gave me all these meds right away, and so everything was okay. It was just like I lost the amount of blood I would have lost if I would have had a C-section is what she said.
Oh, okay.
um so just a higher amount for a vaginal birth.
That doesn't sound too bad.
It wasn't bad. I heard the urgency in her voice because I used to be a labor and delivery nurse, but I was like, it's cool, it's gonna be okay, she's medicating me, it's all gonna be fine. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So how was your recovery?
Good. I felt like I had a second-degree laceration. I felt a little more uncomfortable from that this time, and I felt like my bleeding lasted longer. But I feel like with my daughter, I put a lot of effort into how I wanted the birth to be. And I realized after the fact, like, it's important. Don't get me wrong, but it's a brief period of time. Like,
Mhm.
I am going to put a lot more effort into postpartum this time because I didn't plan for that as well as I would have liked to the first time. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize how important it was. So I like stocked our freezer with quick meals and I worked with that perinatal neuropsychologist. I like lined her up to be on Voxer with her postpartum, like throughout my whole postpartum, so I could talk to someone every day. I researched different supplements just to support my mood and the homeopath, same thing. I asked for recommendations for postpartum from them. And I don't even think I had baby blues. I cried a couple times, but it was like 15 minutes. I just feel like the whole postpartum experience was so much better, so different in a good way. And my son, I think it was just an easier baby, was breastfeeding well. And with my daughter, I ended up pumping,
Mm.
exclusively pumping. Just everything was just so much better.
Yeah. But you
Um,
are also really proactive with it too. And I think
yeah,
that is an important thing to point out also.
definitely.
Hmm.
So I feel like we had a great postpartum.
Yeah. How now you are doing exclusive breastfeeding. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it really, he just was a champion from the beginning. We had a few hiccups, but again, I was very proactive. I went and saw lactation consultants if there was any concerns, and they just alleviated my fears, or we did some tweaking. For a while, I think he was refusing to nurse on one side, and they had me use a nipple shield on that side to slow the flow down, and they started like not liking the nipple shield, so then we just got back to just regular nursing. Everything was just a little hiccup, and then we're still breastfeeding to this day.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah,
What are
yeah.
your plans for weaning? How long do you want to go?
I don't have any plans. Obviously, I was hoping to make it to a year. I have a lot of frozen milk, but I just feel like as long as we're both enjoying it, I can't see us going longer than like age 2, but I'm just gonna see how it goes. Like, I'm open to whatever works out for both of us.
Mhm. Yeah, that's wonderful. You were telling me that the first time you were exclusively pumping and then you went to full time, and I was jealous and also nervous for you at the same time.
I got into a groove, like I just had a system. But yeah, I will definitely say that breastfeeding directly and not having to pump is a lot easier in the long run. Not having to wash all those parts, bottle parts, pump parts.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
definitely. Is there anything else you want to mention about postpartum or pregnancy?
I would say that I feel like he's just having a good pregnancy and postpartum. Pregnancy, especially, as I was really into staying super active like the entire time. I feel like just that helped me feel really good. And like I did a lot of meditations just that were specifically for pregnancy, just to keep a positive frame of mind. So I feel like those are just two key things that just helped me. And also like listening to podcasts, listening to positive birth stories. I didn't want to hear any bad stories. I just
Mhm.
wanted to like keep laser focused on the outcome that I wanted.
You mentioned about staying active. What kind of activities did you do?
Walking was huge for me. I lifted weights and I did a pregnancy specific like workout
Mhm,
plan. Prenatal yoga, cycling, that kind of like spinning like on a stationary bike, like
mhm.
Peloton. But that kind of became a little uncomfortable towards the end just because my stomach was so big and like leaning over.
Do you think being active helped you have an easier birth at the end?
I think so. I think so. Like I didn't have any pain, and I have scoliosis too, and I had spinal fusion for that when I was a teenager. So I just had no back pain. I just felt like physically, for the most part, really good the whole time. And yeah, I do feel like my birth was great. I felt strong. Compared to my daughter, this birth, I remember feeling just like on cloud nine after it. Like, just wow, that was so amazing. And love this baby. It was just like I had all those feelings, and I didn't have that with her. And again, maybe it's because she's a NICU,
Mhm.
but I just remember feeling so good mentally afterwards.
Yeah. Do you also think it was because of your second? Do you think that made a difference?
Yeah, and you know what to expect. Like, I don't think anything can really prepare you the first
Yeah.
time. Like, I babysat babies. I had a like baby brother when I was a teenager. So I like thought I knew, but I did not know.
Yeah.
I just
So
feel like
true.
nothing really can prepare you. I feel like the transition from 1 to 2 was not a big deal. I feel like the transition from 0 to 1 was harder, way harder for me.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You still have a few embryos left. Do you have any plans for those?
No, I feel like we're
Let's stop your story. Hi, Rosie.
hi.
This is actually Jamie and Rosie from the future. The last question I asked you was if you wanted to have more kids in your 40s. And since the beginning, even when we were speaking, when you were looking for a donor, you said you just wanted one baby from this donor egg round. And we recorded your story 4 months ago. Can you tell us what happened since we recorded your story?
Yes, absolutely. Just a little backstory is when I went to my 6-week postpartum check, the nurse practitioner was like, "What do you want to use for birth control?" And I said, "Oh, I don't need birth control. I have severe infertility. Like, we haven't used birth control in 11 years and I've never got pregnant." So, like, I almost felt like her asking me that was triggering. Like, I was just like, "No." And she said something like, "I don't care. Unless you want another baby, you need to do something. I've seen crazy stuff happen." And I said, "Okay, fine. Order me an IUD and I'll get it put in," which I did have full intention of doing. They called me and told me that it was at the office, and then I rationalized, I'm going to wait till my period starts. And then my period came over the summer, and then I said, "Oh, I'm going to wait till January 26th." I really did write it in my calendar that I was going to make this appointment. But obviously, I put it off. And then mid December 2025, I noticed that my period was late. And that happens sometimes. So I truly thought it was just running a little late. And I did take a pregnancy test and it was positive. So, for the first time in my life, at age 45, I got pregnant naturally, which is just crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
How were you feeling about that?
When I first saw the two lines, I was like, what? And I just was thinking this has to be a chemical pregnancy or an extremely early miscarriage is going to happen. And I felt mad because, since I was 33, we were trying to have two children. And I'm like, why now? I'm done. I don't want any more children. Obviously, I'm not opposed to having kids at any age, but for me personally, I just felt like I'm done. The door's closed. I don't want to have two under two. My son was like had just turned a year at the time. And that just wasn't the vision I had for my life. I was just mad at the universe. Like, why is this happening now? And any other time in the past decade, if this would have happened, I would have been ecstatic. And it just felt so cliche too, right? You hear all these stories of people giving up or getting rid of their baby stuff or looking into adoption and then they get pregnant. And that's what I felt was happening to me because I had gotten rid of all my baby stuff and I just had a lot of mixed emotions. I can't say that I was excited or happy and I just was just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Mindfuck, that was
Yeah.
like the perfect description of what was going on because you spend I spent like a decade like praying for this to happen and wanting it to happen. And now I was at a point in my life where I didn't want it anymore. And I was like, I don't know. It was just strange, all these feelings.
Hmm. And you felt guilty for feeling that way too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because I know there are so many people, I personally know people still struggling, still wanting this. I was in that position. And I just felt awful that I was even having these feelings that were anything less than excitement. But I try to have a lot of self compassion because I don't want to beat myself up. Obviously, I was mad at myself that I didn't make getting the IUD a priority. And then now we're in this situation.
Is there anything else you want to say about this?
I don't think so. It just really reminded me how hard miscarriage is and would not wish on anyone and don't want to go through it again. But yeah, I definitely feel like I am totally confident in closing like this chapter of my life. And this experience gave me a glimpse into what it would be like to have another pregnancy and another child. And while I'm sure like part of me was excited and did want it because it wasn't like I was 100% against it, I just feel like the best choice for our family and our life is just to have our family of four and have two kids.
We talked about finding, like, thanking your body for doing this. Have
Yeah,
you gotten close to that yet?
I think so. And I said from the beginning, no matter what happens, I truly do think this was a miracle
Mm.
because I'm sure if I went to a doctor before this happened, they would have told me, oh, like less than 1% chance that you could ever get pregnant naturally. Like, I'm sure with our history, the chances would have been incredibly low. I feel like it is truly a miracle, and I am amazed that after all this time and at this age, my body still was able to have this pregnancy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's finding the light in this horrible situation. It can be helpful.
Yeah, I always look for a silver lining, and it's
Mhm.
hard. This one was hard to find, but I think that and like just having compassion towards others as I go through my life, if I do encounter anyone who's not excited about their pregnancy, now I do understand how
Yeah.
sometimes things happen. And previously, maybe I would have judged them and just wouldn't been able to see their perspective. And now I truly can.
We were gonna redo the end of the show, and I don't think we should anymore. Let's get back to your story from 4 months ago and end the show there.
Okay.
And what has been your biggest challenge being pregnant over 40?
I love being pregnant, but I feel like I just put a lot of pressure on myself because of my age to stay healthy, eat healthy, stay active. And I think sometimes maybe I put too much pressure on myself and I should dial it back a little bit because I feel like all that pressure can be stressful. So I just have to constantly remind myself like I'm doing the best I can with what I know. And I feel like I take really good care of my body and there's people that are younger than me that don't. So I just have to like keep things in perspective. And that's probably a unique thing to say. But yeah, I just feel like I put too much pressure on myself at times.
Yeah. And is there anything you'd recommend that would help someone prepare for pregnancy and birth over 40?
So the meditations that I used are Circle and Bloom meditations. So they have meditations for just trying to conceive naturally and it like aligns with every day of your cycle. Like day
Ah,
1 there's a meditation and so on. But they also have them for IUI and IVF and for pregnancy and I used all of them. So I don't know if you've heard of that before, but I really
uh-uh.
like their meditations and how they're designed. So those, and then the workout program that I used, Jessie Mundell, she is like a perinatal workout person. I don't know, like all of her programs are structured to accommodate whether you're pregnant, postnatal, and beyond. So I worked with her, and she has a corresponding Facebook group. But I just felt really confident with her workouts because I knew everything that I was doing was safe for pregnancy or safe for postpartum versus me like trying to figure it out at home and like wondering if I should be doing this movement or not.
And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
I would say enjoy like every single minute. I definitely tried to, but just because I enjoyed being pregnant so much, just enjoy every single minute, especially because I knew that was going to be my last pregnancy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, we have a lot of women who are trying to conceive. You've had a long journey.
Yeah.
Now, what advice would you give those women who are trying to conceive right now over 40?
I would say if you have the desire to have a baby, like just keep walking towards that goal. There's just so many ways you can become a mother. And obviously, how my story ended, it wasn't what I would have chosen or envisioned, but I feel like we have the baby that we're meant to have. Like,
Yeah.
we're just so happy. And I feel like my son, like, completes our family. Like, it's just amazing. So just be open to every option. I tried to get myself so much like mental health support just because the things you're going through are super hard.
Yeah.
So that I feel like as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And be an advocate for yourself because as you can see, I had to push a little to get that test. And was that make or break? Would I have still got pregnant if I wouldn't have done that? I don't know. But hey, like, I just feel like if you feel like it's important in your heart, then listen to your intuition and push to get something like that done.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. And where can our listeners connect with you?
I am on Instagram and my handle is at Rosey Jen, JENM. And it's private though, so you can totally like request to follow me and I'll preview.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rosey, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story.
for sure. Thank you so much for having me.